it's Jen. I am here today to talk to you about some really simple ways that you can add artistic touches to your projects. I was recently on my local morning show, Studio 5. I'll leave a link to that clip in the video description if you want to see it. And I was talking about painterly patterns and how they're everywhere, from fashion to home decor. You see things on pillows and fabrics. I wanted to show you this really awesome pouch that my friend Irit gave me. She actually painted this and had it made, but there's painterly patterns like this on all sorts of things that we see, and sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating, and so I wanted to show you a few simple ways that you can incorporate it. The first thing that I want to show you, I'm going to kind of follow the order of things that I did on Studio 5. And so the first thing I want to show you is a really simple piece of home decor that you can create with just a paintbrush and some acrylic paint. So I have some paint here on this little plate, and I've just chosen 3 different colors of just, you know, your regular acrylic paint. Now, if you are a crafter, you probably have a lot of paint in your stash. You might have nicer or different paints, but you can really use whatever you want. And I am going to use a nice flat brush, just because it doesn't have to be nice, but I just mean like a flat brush that's kind of wide because I like the wide stripes. But you can use flat brushes in all sorts of widths. Sorry, I'm reaching here. I should have been more prepared. In all sorts of widths to get different sizes of stripes. And you could use a round brush too. You're just going to get a different look. But I want to show you here with these quickly how you can create a simple piece of artwork in just, you know, 1 minute really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'll move these watercolors out of the way. I'm going to take my acrylic paint and I'm just going to choose a color. Now the one that I'll pop the picture in again, the one that I created matches my home decor, so you can choose any colors that match whatever vibe you want to go for. But I'm just going to start with this light blue, and I'm just going to load up my brush, and all I'm going to do is swipe it across. And I am happy to have these little areas where it doesn't quite, it's not quite full, where it's not dense with paint, where the paint kind of is breaking up. That gives it just a more artistic quality, and it just has a really cool vibe to it, to me. And so then I'm going to go in with my next color. Now you can rinse out your brush. I have several brushes, so I don't have to worry about rinsing out my brush because I'm lazy. But I like to go starting the other way the next time so that when it runs out of paint, it's on the opposite side, and that just gives, you know, a little variation to it. You can see that I've got 2 colors on that brush. Now let's go into the pink. I'm going to go ahead and let's go in with a smaller brush. The example that I showed, I used the same size brush for all the stripes, but you don't have to. You can vary it however you want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to do 2 pink stripes here. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in with this lighter blue. Now I have some dark blue on my brush, so that might transfer over. I'm okay with that. I'm just going to go in. See, it does have a little bit of the dark blue. I kind of like it. I'm going to go back into the dark blue with my big brush. Okay, and then now this would probably fit an 8x10 frame. That's what I'm going for. If you wanted to, you could do 1 more pink stripe at the bottom. That might look nice. You could turn this into a plaid if you wanted, but this right here is a super simple way to create artwork, and it doesn't look like much, but when you put it in a nice frame, it really does have that artsy vibe, and it just looks like it belongs in your home, in my opinion. So that is one way that you can really easily create some artwork for your home in just a couple of minutes. Now I want to show you, I like to use up my leftover paint. I don't want to waste any of that. So here's the next trick I'm going to show you, another thing that I really like to do. This was the one that Brooke and I created on the air on Studio 5, but I'm just going to use the back of this for my demonstration. If you have an old credit card or gift card, or even a thicker piece of cardstock or something, I'm actually going to use this business card. This is a great way to get really cool painterly stripes on on a background that you can use for a layout or a card. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the paint onto this card. I'm just going to kind of load it up. I'm going to get some light blue on the side too. Okay, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape it across the paper. Now I'm using a really smooth cardstock, and it gives a really nice look to this. And you can just scrape the paint across, and you can go back in with other colors. You can go the opposite way. See, I'm getting a real purple vibe now because they've mixed together. You can wait till it dries and then go back in to get some different layers. And it just gives a really cool look. So you can create something like this where the whole background's covered, or you can create something where it is just stripes of color. And I also really like to use this, which is a palette knife, and I like to use this to scrape on the paint. And for the example that I brought to Studio 5, let me show you the page that I created using this technique. And I actually used my palette knife. I'll move this paint stuff off to the side so it's not in our way. I'm going to save this and show you something I'm going to do with this in a minute though. And let me show you, this is the example that we created on air, so with the different paint swatches. So you'll get a different look every time, and depending on what kind of colors that you use, obviously. But this is the layout that I created using my palette knife and a few different colors of paint. And I kind of went in an ombre fashion, so I went from like a cream color to a light green, like a yellowy green, and then kind of a seafoam color, and then a light blue, and then like a sky blue. And that was a really fun way to create an easy background. It has a lot, it adds a lot of character to it without taking away from anything, and I really love the way that looks. Now let me show you another example where I did it a little bit differently. This layout, I did the same technique. I just scraped paint onto the background, but rather than doing it in stripes, I created an L shape. So I just grabbed my paint and went like this and went like this and created that background, and then layered all of my stuff on top. So that's a good way to get a nice little framework to your background, and it's fun to do, to create backgrounds like this with just the leftover paint that you have when you're doing another project. So I'll show you right now. I'll just go ahead and grab a piece of cardstock. We'll do an 8.5 by 11 because that's what I can find handy. And I will just use my palette knife and create an L-shaped design using the little bit of paint that we have left here on this palette, just so we don't waste anything. I'm just going to grab some, and I'm just going to scrape it on. Now, if you like the texture of it, you can definitely leave it thicker and not scrape so thin. Look at that pretty color. I love that. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit more and come up here. I like to kind of make it look not too formed, so I want a little bit going out of the L shape so that there's a little bit of space on the sides. And so that's something that I like to do. And then I can save this and use it on a future layout. And I love these colors, actually. They match some of the new Paige Evans collection that I have. So anyway, so now I've got that, all of that good paint used up. I didn't waste any, and now I've got some starting points for some other projects. So that's a really, really fun way to do that. Now let's go back to the paper that I had before, and I just dipped my finger in it. That's okay though. Let's go back to this paper. Now this is getting close to dry. In some areas where the paint is very thin, it is dry. But I want to add a little bit of character to this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white Distress Spray Stain. Now this is just like a white ink spray, but you could use watered down white acrylic paint as well. So just add a little bit of water to your acrylic paint, and you can use a paintbrush to flick it on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to tap it around. Now those of you who are subscribers already have seen me do this kind of thing several times, but if you are new here or just found the video on YouTube, you may not know, so I'm explaining a little bit further. But you can just tap around to get those nice white splatters. Again, you can use paint to do this, just water it down a little bit, and I just really like the texture that gives. So I could go ahead and use this as the background for a layout if I wanted to. But one of the things that I absolutely love doing is punching out papers like this that maybe I started creating it for something and it didn't quite go as I planned, or I don't know, it feels a little bit too much, like it's gonna overtake my photo, which I don't love to. I like my photo to take center stage. Then what I like to do is to punch shapes out of it. And so let me show you. This is an example that I brought to Studio 5. Now this looks a little bit like a hot mess. This is gold paint, but it kind of is just looking like baby poop a little bit. But it has some pretty colors in it. And when you punch it out, it just has a really pretty look to it. And you can create all sorts of layouts using those punched out shapes. So let me show you an example of that kind of technique. I have a couple examples here where I've done just that. So this is a paper that I scraped a bunch of paint across, and then I took a die, actually, not a punch, because I didn't have a punch this large, and I just cut out those shapes, and you can see I have the painted look, but I still have all the white space around it. So the punches kind of give a home to the paint and make it feel less in your face, if that makes sense. So I really love the way that looks, and it works really great for flower centers as well. This is a layout that I created for Spellbinders, so I used a Spellbinders die to create these embellishments, and I really love the way that looks. And then I did the same kind of thing on this layout where I took some acrylic paint, and I layered it on actually pretty thick. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but these have quite a lot of texture and dimension to them. I had to let the paint dry for like a day because they needed that extra time because the paint was so thick. But I did that, and then I punched these out. I actually used a die on these as well. And cut those out and put them in my background to give that painter look. And I didn't need any skill to do that. All I did was slap some paint on a piece of paper. So that's another really easy way that you can add that kind of vibe to your page without needing to know how to be an artist, really. Anyone can do this. So it's a really fun technique and way to add to your projects. The next thing that I wanted to show you is a couple of things with a paint palette. One of the things that I absolutely love doing, and if you are a scrapbooker, you know about this technique already, but it is the smooshing technique. And it is so fun and it is so easy. Basically what you do is you take a piece of plastic packaging, you apply ink or paint to it and some water, and then you smush it down. You can see an example of it here. And I have several layouts that I'll show you in just a second, but for those of you who maybe haven't done this technique before, let's just go ahead and take a little look. So I have a piece of watercolor paper. You don't have to have watercolor paper, you definitely don't. You can use ink or paints or any sorts of things, but I'm going to show you with watercolors because most of us have something like this on hand. If you don't, an ink pad will work great as well. Basically what you're going to do is you're just going to apply a little bit of color to the plastic packaging. So I'm going to use a water brush, but you can use a paintbrush and water, and I'm just going to grab some colors that will look nice together. Okay, this is out of paint, or out of water. Let me grab a different one. Here we go. Okay, so I am just going to grab some of this pink because I love pink, And I'm actually, this time I'm going to grab a little bit of blue. I love when pink and blue combine and make kind of a purpley color. So I know those will look nice together. And then I'm actually going to also grab a purple. So there'll just be a darker purple shade. Okay, so this is pretty wet. I don't think I need to add any more water to it because it is watercolor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to smush it down, and I'm going to move it around a little bit so that you can see the color moving underneath that, right? And I'm just going to get some interesting looks. Now I kind of lost a little bit of my pink, so what I can do is I can go back in with some more pink if I want to, and I can touch that in some of the areas where it kind of got lost. And it's just a really fun, like whimsical way to add some color that sometimes can be really hard to achieve this kind of effect when you're just using a paintbrush. I'll show you here how you can try to get that look, and this has a little bit more water to it, so maybe it won't work quite as well, but it's hard to get that really free form look when you're using a brush, because sometimes you can see the brush marks, and especially if you're not an artist or you're not familiar with watercolors or paints, it can be really hard to achieve. So this is just a really easy way to do it and get a really nice looking piece. And so you can use this for all sorts of things. You can do the same thing where you punch it out. I like to use it on backgrounds. I love to use it on cards. I have a card example where I just did the smooshing and then I simply stamped a phrase on top of it. It looks like you hand watercolored this card, and you did, but it only took you a couple seconds because it's so easy to do. So you can just use the smooshing, stamp a phrase on top, or you could even handwrite something if you aren't a stamper and give that as a card. So it's a really easy way. Let me show you some examples of some layouts that I've done. So this one uses some really bright colors of ink that I smushed down all over the background, and then I added things on top of it. You can see that kind of effortless look. It's very messy and painterly, and I love that look, so it's really fun to make something like this. Here's another one that's a little bit more, well, get rid of that washi tape. This one's a little bit more subtle, and if you do blue with water pages, it gives a really great look. So I did blue and a little bit of gold. You can see the gold when I flip it in the light there, that I did some smushing with some Heidi Swap gold color shine. So you can find spray mists like these at craft stores, and you can just, instead of putting the watercolor down on this little mat, you just spray the ink and then smush that down. So it's a really easy way to do it as well. And I love the way that looks. So there's that one. Here's another example where I used it underneath a cut file. This is the cut file I have in my shop. And I just used a few different colors in the background, smushed it all down, and it gives you that artsy vibe and without really any work. So I love that. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to show you with the same smushing technique is that you can use something that has a shape to it and get a different look. So let's get another piece of paper here. This is what I did right here on this, and what you do, you grab another piece of watercolor paper. Again, you don't have to use watercolor paper. You can use any kind of cardstock. You get different results depending on the kind of paper that you use. But you really can use anything. So let me show you, I will show you this with the watercolors that we used, and then I'll show you with some stamping ink as well. So I'm just going to use pink, and let's use some orange. How about? I really love pink and orange. I'm just going to grab a bunch of color here. That's good enough. And what I'm going to do, well, I'll make sure I have enough water on here. I just put a little tiny bit more on. And I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to smush it down, and the circle kind of contains that paint. It stays underneath where the pressure is. So when I lift this up, it will lift up some of the color, but it's also going to leave that circular shape. I could go back in if I want to and add some more, like try to move the color around a little bit. It will blend more when you do that. I kind of prefer not to do that. And then you can use it again depending on how much water is still left on it. That time there really wasn't much. The other thing I like to do is use it with inks. So you can do this. Distress inks work really well. They're water reactive, but I'm just going to use these Altenew crisp dye inks. It will work with this too. So I'm just going to stamp a little bit of ink on the edges, and I'm going to use pink, and let's use a little bit of blue. And I'll get a lighter pink as well. Let's do pink diamond actually. Whew, these are brand new and a little bit tricky for me to open. Okay. Then what I'm going to do, because this is an ink and not, it doesn't have really, it's not watery, I'm just going to spray it with my spray bottle, and then I can do the same thing, flip it over. I could have sprayed it maybe one more time. I sometimes kind of like the look when there's little bits and pieces that don't have water all the way in them. So you can do it with ink as well, as you can see there. And if I spray it one more time, we can see if we can get any more off of it. And you can see we did. It's a very soft look there. So this is a really fun way to do it, to use something circular. I love using that circle ink, or this circle, what is this called? Stamping block to do this technique. And let me show you a page where I used that technique. You can see this here. There are little circles on the background of this. This is actually a layout. I think, yeah, this is from my Ready Sketch Go class. So if you're interested in that class, it's Ready Sketch Go Volume 5. You can check it out. I also used some of my stamp sets that I created, which are available at my shop. But the hero of this page is really these stamped ink spots in the background, which turned out so fabulous. I love them. So there's that. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show you was just a few more examples of ways that you can use the paints of like things that you just threw together, and then maybe you turn it into a project. So I have stuff like this where I used a stencil, and then this was like I cleaned off the stencil on this page, so it's kind of messy. And then this is where I was trying out some new watercolors, so I was swatching a whole bunch of colors. You can turn these kinds of things that might just get thrown away into really awesome cards. And so that's what I've done here. So this is a card where I did some ink swatching, and I was just trying some different color combinations here, and then I cut it up and turned it into a card just by adding a word here and then a couple of stamps. So very, very easy. Here's one where I used the other part of this little thing here where I had all the swatches. I cut it into a little piece and used it as a background on a card as well. Very, very simple to do. And lastly, this is the technique that we started the whole thing with, is just doing swatches of paint. So I just used my watercolors and a paintbrush and did swipes of ink in the rainbow colors. So super simple. I added a few sequins and a stamped phrase, and this card took just a few minutes to make. So you can really get that artistic look without trying very hard at all. The last thing I wanted to show you was a couple of ways that you can get an artistic look without, if you're still intimidated after seeing these different ideas and you just want something ready-made. Let me show you a few products that you can, there are definitely products that have that artsy vibe to them that you can purchase to incorporate into your projects. So first of all, of course, there are patterned papers and different things like that. This is actually a transparency sheet from Pretty Little Studio, but it has that painted look, and because it's see-through, you can stick this on your background and almost get away with it looking like you created it, which is really, really awesome. The other thing that we have, I have lots of patterned papers that have those gorgeous painterly patterns on them. This is from Paige Evans' New Horizon collection from Pink Paisley. Really fun, really cool colors. You can try to recreate something like this, but this is so nice because it's already done for you. Here's another one where you get that great ombre look, but you can see the brush strokes in it, so it has that really artsy handmade vibe. Here's one that's just paint splatters from Pink Fresh Studios Indigo Hills collection. This one is from Alta New's new, I think it's Live Your Dream collection, and this is just painted stripes, just like what we did at the beginning. They're just nice bold stripes, so that is a really cool background. This is a paper from Vicki Boutin that has, it kind of looks like the smooshing technique all over, a little bit of splatter, and it's all monochromatic. Very cool look. And here's another one from the Pink Paisley Horizon collection from Paige Evans, where we've got the ombre, but it's more, you definitely see more of those paint strokes, those brush strokes. And also in this collection, there are lots of embellishments that have those kind of painted patterns on them, and they're just really, really cute. So you can definitely purchase these kinds of products that will give you that same sort of vibe. The other thing, the next pre-purchasable product that I want to talk about is washi tape. So Alta New has these awesome, like, wide format washi tapes. This is a 7-inch roll of washi tape, and it has these gorgeous painted flowers on it. I've done a process video with a scrapbook layout on my channel here, using this washi tape, but you can make a card in 5 seconds by using this washi tape. You just put some down, add a sentiment, and it's good to go. So simple, so easy, and you've got that painted vibe that looks so pretty. There are also other kinds of washi tapes. This is one that I have in my stash that I got online somewhere, but I'm not sure. Maybe Etsy. Let's see if I can pull it up. Ew. You can see it though. It's got these different painted patterns on it. It's really, really cute, and it's got that watercolor vibe to it. And then this is a brand new one from the Pink Paisley Horizon collection that has that painted look to it as well. So you can get the look even in washi tapes, which is really cool. So definitely don't despair if you aren't feeling like getting out your paints and your different things and getting messy. You don't have to. The last pre-packaged or pre-made product that I wanted to talk about was stamps. So these are some stamps from Close to My Heart. It's called A Birthday in Watercolor, and these are stamps that look like watercolor. And so you can see that there's this little paint stripe here. There's like a kind of blobby thing here. There's some splatters and a heart and another little blob. These are great for stamping to make it look like it's watercolored. I will stamp out an example for you. Let's just take, I have a different stamp on my block here, but I'm going to take that one off because this is actually a retired stamp set, so it's no longer available. So I'll show you this one because it is still available. And let's take a look at how we can easily stamp this to get that painty look. So I'm just going to use this piece of paper here because I'll end up cutting it up anyway, so I can just stamp right on here. And I'm going to, since we're using a Close to My Heart stamp, let's use some Close to My Heart ink. I am going to use Smoothie. And I'm just going to ink this up, stamp it down. And you can see when I stamp it, of course it has the blobby look of you know, like a watercolored thing, but it's also lighter in some areas, so it looks like it fades out. And then as this dries, the paper soaks it in because it's a dye ink. It dyes the paper and it soaks in a little bit and it dries back and it's even more smooth. So it's a really cool look. Let's go ahead and stamp some of the splatters next to it, and you can see how it would look like like maybe you just spilled some. This is red, so it kind of looks like blood. But you can also stamp this on top of it and get like another layer if you wanted to. That doesn't look so great, but you get the idea. And the long one is really great for stamping a sentiment on top of, and they're really fun to use. So I love using these. I have all sorts of stamp sets that have this kind of paint look to them, and I use them when I'm feeling like I'm not brave enough to add actual paint, or when I'm feeling a little bit lazy. And so let's clean this stamp off and I'll show you an example of a card where I used this stamp set. So I used just a big stamp in the background. That's a retired one from Close to My Heart. And then I added this little, this is another way that you can add artsy stuff to your layouts without being artistic, but they have these watercolor flowers that you can watercolor, so they just come white and then you can just add color to them. So I just used my paint palette that I showed you earlier and just added a little bit of color to this rose, and it was super simple. And then I stamped the background. Very easy to do, and a really easy technique to add that artsy look. So let me show you a couple of examples of layouts where I've used these pre-made products. So here's one where I used this background that came with this paint already on it. So you could try to create something like this, but how easy is it when the work is already done for you? You can also see that I have these speech bubbles that have this watercolor look to them, and those were pre-made die cuts from Pretty Little Studio. This is from, it's a scrapbook.com exclusive from Crate Paper. And so that's a really easy way to add the artistic look. And then here is another page that I created recently for Altenew, where the background and these embellishments, they all have that painted look to them, and they are already made like that. Now I did add a little bit of my own flair to it with these stamped images, which I stamped and then I heat embossed them with white heat embossing powder, and then I painted them in. So you can stamp an image and then paint it, and it looks like you did a lot of work, but it's really simple. So those are the techniques and projects that I wanted to share with you today. I hope this was helpful for some of you. I hope that you'll try adding these artsy techniques and looks to some of your projects. If you do, leave a comment below and let me know where I can find it, because I'd love to go and take a look. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're not already a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I have new crafty videos each and every week. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!